This is some breaking news coming in. CNN News 18 has managed to get some information as far as Sushant Singh Rajput's Pavna farmhouse is concerned. They are currently conducting searches there. During this search, Sushant Singh Rajput's handwritten notes have been found. These notes date back to April 27th, 2018. We are putting them on your screens as well. In these notes, he's writing about his future planning. And these seem to be routine notes. It seems that someone has asked him to write these notes, possibly the doctors, the psychiatrists he was seeing. In these notes, Sushant Singh Rajput has written, no smoking. His diary pages are talking about his dreams, quantum physics, how he planned about achieving his dreams in the years ahead. Let me go straight across to Herman, who is joining us on the broadcast. Herman, I was just going through some of the pictures that you have sent to us about, and these are pictures that have been taken from the diary, Sushant Singh Rajput's diary. He's talking about NASA plus Sushant for education. He's talking about Niti Aayog policies. He's talking about the UN Peace Climate Summit. He's talking about self-musing. Again, he's randomly scribbled words, Herman, bliss, courage, yes, brilliance, divine. So what are these notes? I mean, is this a personal diary? Is this part of some treatment? What is this exactly?
Well, Shreya, at the most, these pages show the state of mind of Sushant Singh Rajput at that point in time. Also, you'd recollect around the same time as when in 2018 he had founded his own company, which was looking at forming certain sort of IPs around artificial intelligence. He was already in talks with two of his founders. They had in fact already formed the company, which is also under the investigation of the ED. So at the most, they not just talk about his dreams and his plans as far as his company was concerned, which was revolving about online education, about IPs, about artificial intelligence, but it also shows his state of mind. And this is about that point in time. As you rightly mentioned, Shreya, he mentions about Niti Aayog, its policies, about space science, and also certain interesting thoughts where he's penned down, where he says, and I quote, there are no right answers, there are only better questions. So this is in a way just highlighting the state of mind that he was. This was at the time when he had founded his first company. This is not the company that he had formed with Ria Oshovik, but there were another two founders along with him. But that company, unfortunately, never really took off. It was supposed to be based on four broad patterns, including online education and artificial intelligence, among various other IPs that they were looking at. So this is at that point in time, and clearly the investigative agencies have taken a note of it. The same they have also discussed with the five psychiatrists that he was in touch with. But at the most, they only reveal his state of mind and his plans, and nothing sinister in them.
I'm just reading from these pages because they are enlightened at one level, because he's quoting Kabir in certain places, Rumi in certain places. So certainly this was someone who used to read a lot. This is someone who had deep thoughts. He was not a frivolous person. That's very clear from these pages that are coming out. Is it also clear that this was possibly a troubled mind? I'm not a trained psychiatrist. I cannot make a comment on that. I just want to read out something and then ask you a question. He says, reality doesn't exist until we meet it. Quantum physics. Then he's also quoting Rumi, where he's saying, what you seek is seeking you. He's also quoting Kabir. And these are all on our screens right now, these texts. जब मैं था तब हरि नहीं, अब हरि है तो मैं नहीं. I want to ask you this, Herman. Are these notes from a time before he met and started living in with Ria Chakravarti? Or is it during the time that the two of them were in love and were staying together?
No, Shreya, rightly pointed. Good question there. In fact, what investigative agencies have told us, this is before he could meet Ria Chakravarti. This was the time before when he had first initially floated his company with another two. As you're rightly pointing out, there's a mix of thoughts that he has put out about his future plans. And we do know at that point in time, he was sort of trying to look into astrophysics, which was more about the properties of atoms, etc. But clearly, this was the basis of what he had planned to form his company. Unfortunately, it really never took off. It was what many would have called it now, a bit ahead of time, if one may say so. But clearly, it was looking at IPs, various sort of online education medium. There were four basic. We do know that there were another two founders with him, along with this who have already been questioned by the ED. But at the most, this is before he could meet Riya Chakravarti is what we are learning from investigators. Clearly, he had certain plans in mind. At the same time, trying to put it with, trying to gauge the same with the reality that was surrounding him at that point in time. But all of this now is being taken into account by the investigative agency, and in this case, particularly the CBI.
So you have clarified this. I'm going to put that in front of our viewers as well so that there's no confusion. These notes that have been found because there are raids that are being conducted at his farmhouse right now. These are part of his diary. This diary and these notes were written before he met Riya Chakrabarti. Harman, very quickly then, was this a period when Sushant Singh Rajput was already seeing people like Dr. Kersey Chawda and Dr. Susan Walker? Is this the time when he had already started seeing these psychiatrists?
Shreya, we do not know the exact name of the psychiatrist, but I can tell you on record is that, yes, he was already in consultation with few of his doctors at that point in time. And these are not psychiatrists. He was talking to therapeutics at that point in time to try and understand. But this was much before things could go a little bit, when he began consulting the psychiatrist. But this was much before that. This was the time when he had thought of, taking a backseat from Bollywood and starting his own company, which was not just looking at films and production, but something far more alternate, which many would say at this point was far ahead of its time.
It was, and he's made these little notes. I think our viewers can read that as well. He's made these written notes. There's one where he says experience and analysis, and he's trying to correlate the two, experience and analysis. Then he's written these words and phrases. They're all in black. There you see it. And then he's tried to correlate them by drawing circles around them with a red pen. Harman, you've already mentioned these. There are no right answers. There are only better questions. Then he's saying why. There's a question mark. And in the same box is happiness. Is he trying to say why happiness? I don't know. We'll probably try and get a psychologist to speak about that. And there are these random words he has scribbled. He says happiness, success, what is correct, yours, why, bliss, courage, brilliance, divine. Is this how he thought of himself? Because, on the top there's a black box and he says experience. And what does he want to experience? This is a young man who seems to be fairly evolved. He says, and he was just 34 years old. He wants bliss, he wants courage, he wants brilliance, and he wants divine as well. These are thoughts that he's scribbling to himself. Possibly he's been asked to scribble these thoughts. If you have thoughts sometimes, many doctors ask you to scribble them down, put them down on paper. You have been speaking to a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists. You've been speaking to people who've been investigating the case. According to them, what does this say about his mental state of mind?
Well, Shreya, the pickup point, I think, from these notes is, and what we are picking up from the investigative agencies, is that there's nothing sinister. Rather, there was something that he was trying to, build for himself moving ahead. There was a sort of confusion prevailing in his mind, which is why he decided best to ensure that it was taken down in the form of these diary entries. And at the most, as you're mentioning these words, he's trying to relate at some point. We do know that he was he had a keen interest in astronomy, in physics. There are certain sort of those quotes also coming in. But then you have mention of Niti Aayog, you have mention of NASA, which he also visited. So in a way, he was trying to build up for himself, his mental state of mind is being seen there. Two, as I was mentioning, the company that he was planning to set up, which was again related to astronomy and astrophysics, artificial intelligence. This again being ahead of his time before he could meet Riya Chakravarti. And we do know that after the company was formed, it was in less than a year that it was shut down finally. It really never took off. But as you were mentioning, sometimes, yes, in the past we have seen how certain sort of the investigative agencies as well as the psychiatrists have said that he was in a fragile state of mind, which is why probably at the best he may have decided to instead take down to paper and narrate his thoughts rather than confiding in some person or Riya Chakravarti. But at this point, let me clarify that he had not met Riya Chakravarti.
Okay, Harman, thank you very much for clarifying that. I can go across to Tuhin Sinha of the BJP as well. Tuhin, I'm just asking you as a layperson and not a party spokesperson. We'll get you to speak as a party spokesperson in just a bit. There's a piece of breaking information that we are getting. But before that, what do you make of these notes? To me, a lot of times when you have people who go to see psychiatrists or psychologists, they're asked to write down their thoughts. Even if they're random thoughts, doctors will ask you to write them down. This possibly is that. I'm not sure about it. I'm sure investigating agencies will tell us a little more about that. But to me, it looks like that. It looks like the thoughts of a young man who was fairly evolved and a young man who was possibly looking forward to a good life ahead.
Well, absolutely. I have said this before, that in his life of 34 years, the first 33 years seem to be perfectly normal. And then in the last 1 year, a certain drug mafia seemed to have hijacked his life. But even if you, apart from these notes, if you recall, even on the last day, which is 13th June, the day before he died, he was in discussion with film producers. So I think he was extremely focused about his life, extremely focused about his goals, and had it not been for a certain drug mafia which had hijacked his life through some, unhealthy or morbid company which he had fallen into, I think he would have been in a different place.
Acha. Okay, Tuhin, just stay with us because I just want to take our viewers through and show them more closely what these pages are telling us. Again, you need a doctor, you need a psychologist or a psychiatrist to tell us what really these random thoughts that Sushant Singh Rajput put on paper mean. But let me just read them to you. We'll just try and pause this for a bit as well. At many places, okay, let's talk about this first. So this is one piece of paper where there's a lot of chaos. If you look at this piece of paper, the one that we just showed you, there's a lot of chaos there. There are a lot of words that were written there, and those words were written in black, and then you had red circles. Then there is a page that has complete clarity. If there are pages with chaos, there are pages with complete clarity, like the page like this. We'll just ask our producer to stop this here. This is the chaotic page I was talking about, where he's talking about experience, analysis, happiness. He's talking about success. He's asking a question, why? And then he's saying, what is experience? Experience, one of the things I want to experience is bliss. One of the things I want to experience is courage, brilliance, divinity as well. So there's a lot of chaos in this page. But if you go to other pages, and we'll just go to those other pages as well, there seems to be complete clarity. There seems to be a clarity of thought. Look at this. He's correlating experience and analysis. He's saying my experience will enrich my analysis. At least that's what I think he's trying to say here, because he's trying to correlate the two. And this is a plain paper. There's clarity of thought. And then I think this is the most interesting page that we have seen. This is where he has quoted Rumi. This is where he's talking about Kabir. Let me just start with Kabir. This is a Kabir ka doha. This is a very famous one. He says, "Jab main tha tab hari nahi, ab hari hai, main nahi." He's quoting Rumi as well in the same page. What you seek is seeking you. And then quantum physics. Reality doesn't exist until we meet it. So these are the thoughts of an evolved person. These are the thoughts of someone who, of course, reads a lot and thinks deeply as well. Meanwhile, we are getting some shocking piece of